Hi and welcome everybody to our very first RPA Academy podcast. And we're going to today sort of follow up on a meeting that we had a few months ago when we talked about the skills gap. And during that conversation, we highlighted really the need for a different mindset. In fact, we called it the growth mindset. And today I've got two fantastic guests who are going to sort of talk about what is the growth mindset and what does that really mean for the workforce. So before I begin, I just want to do some introductions, and I'll start with Will.
Hi Rob, thanks very much for having me. My name is Will Kellett. I run Evolve AI. We are a digital transformation-based headhunting firm based in Milton Keynes. We operate into various domains around transformation, such as RPA, AI, machine learning, etc. Yeah, I think from a hiring standpoint and a company and employee standpoint, we've got a good perspective to give on growth mindset around these areas.
I'm very much looking forward to it. And of course, you know, this is an RPA Academy podcast, and our founder for the RPA Academy is Edward Brooks. Sort of, Ed, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thanks for organising this, Rob. But I mean, it's a fascinating topic. I think it could probably apply to any person or individual in any field, shape or form, in any stage in their careers or their lives. So, you know, in that way, it's kind of very open the conversation, but certainly a fascinating topic, especially when you think about people having to stay relevant over longer periods of their career, over a longer period of their career in a career path which is completely unknowable going forward. So, fascinating topic.
And I think, you know, I mean, I was reading something recently sort of called the half-life of knowledge. And really what that was talking about was effectively the knowledge that we need to do our jobs today is far, far greater or far more complex than it's ever been before. But equally, the duration which that knowledge is relevant is much, much shorter. And really that sort of seems to lead us into this whole principle of we just have to get into a different way of learning. And so I guess, you know, that leads us neatly into, you know, when we talk about the growth mindset, what do we really mean by that? Will, do you want to give that one a starter?
Yeah, I think it's an individual. I think it's two things. It's both a lifestyle and a mindset. I think it's not something that, you know, you can pick up and put down, you know, every quarter or every month or however often you feel like it. I think it's something that needs to be, you know, it's a mindset that's ingrained in you, and it can be a CEO, it could be an employee, it could be a solo entrepreneur, it could be whoever. And I think it's that continual thirst for learning, you know, always changing, one eye on the horizon, seeing what's coming around the corner, you know, always evolving. And I think you know, that's it for me in a nutshell. It's continual learning.
And you know, I mean, we were talking just before we sort of started the podcast, and you sort of pointed out you're a millennial. So from a millennial's point of view, you know, do you think your approach to learning is perhaps different to my generation of learning?
Yeah, I am, unfortunately, for my sins, a millennial. I think we have it easy, you know, in all honesty. I think there's so many resources out there for people to, you know, methods of taking information on, you know, they just weren't available even a few years ago. And I think, you know, I read a book a couple of months ago, Life Leverage by Rob Moore, and it was all about how to get more out of the same time. We all have the same amount of time, you know, people, you know, the one thing I would say to people that kind of have that closed mindset of, oh, you know, where do you find time to do this? You know, my first question is, how much Love Island are you watching? Because there's like 10 hours a week right there. But, you know, I think for me personally, I was, I'm at school, I wasn't a great performer. I'm not the quickest reader. I'm probably somewhere on, you know, mild dyslexia spectrum without, you know, ever being tested. But, you know, so I struggled at school, and then I never went to university because I thought I was not that clever, et cetera, and I wasn't really that passionate about anything. certainly academic, but these days the amount of online content that I watch and consume, I actually track it at the moment. I track quite a few different kind of metrics, for my personal life throughout the week, but I'm consuming 10 to 15 hours a week of extra content online, and that's either through YouTube or audiobooks or podcasts or whatever. And that online content I personally find 10 times easier to digest and retain than anything in a textbook. I haven't read a proper book for a long time. I just said I read Life Leverage. I listened to it whilst I'm out running or on my bike or in the car. And I think, that for me in a nutshell is my growth mindset is, if I'm driving to a meeting, what am I doing? Am I listening to Radio 1 or am I learning? And I think, that's how I define my personal growth mindset, is levering up on my time and then learning as I'm doing things. So yeah, I think content delivery is the biggest changer.
But you it's kind of lifestyle. It's certainly mindset. But I think you're, for all of us, doesn't matter whether we're millennials or not, the accessibility factor is insane. I mean, I've read that book as well, but I didn't read that. I bought, and the first audiobook I listened to was the one you mentioned there. But the accessibility, for his previous, I think, go to the nearest bookshop, find the book, they didn't have it, wait for it to come with the stock, wait for it to come back, and then by that stage I've lost a week or 2 weeks and given up and forgotten why I was learning it. So the immediacy of accessibility. So really, I mean, in terms of excuses, there are none. I mean, and
it's free. The internet is free.
Well, it's free,
YouTube is free.
I was listening to some, heavy metal guitarist that was doing cover, or going back to learn stuff that he did, 20 years or 25 years ago, and he'd forgotten how to play it. So he just went to YouTube and was taught by someone on YouTube how to play the stuff that he played originally. But, for us, you had to go back and buy the sheet music or slow down the records to play it and learn it. Anyway, so the accessibility factor is just, those three things, choosing to do it, having a lifestyle that's built around it, and the habits, and thirdly, the accessibility, it's there. There's no excuse.
And I think
everyone's got a smartphone.
There was something that Will mentioned there, more about the lifestyle. I mean, the mindset isn't about the content or the topic, but I think it's also a lot about the lifestyle. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've got one hand, you've got the, that kind of choice. You drive to the meeting, listen to your podcast, or you drive listening to Radio 1, or is it in the evening? Is it 2 hours lost with Love Island, or is it 2 hours gained with your podcast? And also the physical side of things, in terms of being fresh, sharp, eating the right food, getting the right sleep, all things that are going to empower your learning and your ability to digest it. So the more we've been looking at over the last couple of months, it's super holistic. It's on the one hand, you can find the technical content out there, you can find the technical training, so you're ticking that box. But if you're waking up sluggish, and if you're not prioritizing it as something that you want to do, and if you're not able to kind of be physically fit enough to sit at your desk for long periods of time, then you're not actually able to really implement the knowledge that you're picking up. So it's everything that's going to empower you further. And it's not that you can't just use the knowledge of its own, but if you really want to maximize it, all these other things start kicking in as factors to play in. And again, it's way beyond what I thought we'd ever be doing in a sort of technology training business, but we're looking more and more at these kind of lifestyle things that are going to fuel your kind of career of growth and career evolution over multiple years. And so you're fit and able, how to learn, it's not just you can learn it, how to learn, how to retain information, all these kind of tricks that are important, for our long life, in the workplace.
Yeah.
And I think that probably takes us neatly into the workplace. What effect does the growth mindset have now for people entering the workplace, or the opposite, which is, those people that don't have the growth mindset, are they now at an disadvantage in the workplace today? Will, is that something you'd like to pick up?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I've an individual kind of example of it is yes, I think it affects people looking for roles. So we actually test for it in our hiring, and the way that we test for it in our hiring is really simply making people sell themselves really quite hard, and chasing me and or HR function down to apply. And the people that really stand out are those guys that write a really well worded cover letter, send it and follow up. And it's not even growth mindset, it's just being proactive and actually caring, as opposed to just clicking apply and expecting a job to land in your lap. So we kind of test for it that way a little bit. Anyone that actually applies to us without that cover letter, because it specifically says that in the advert, so I'm testing whether you can read or not. And if you can't read that and then act on it, your CV just won't even get looked at. So we kind of test for it at our, in our hiring. I think across the broader kind of workplace, yes, definitely. I think people that self-learn, self-develop, they're always going to stand on the shoulders of others and get promotions before them and be put in leadership positions and all that kind of stuff. I think the people that don't have it, it's almost going to be like an austerity gap, because people that have this mindset are able to leverage and go up and up and up. You'll have the people that don't, kind of going further the other way, off the other end. That's what I think anyway.
And do you think it's more transparent nowadays when people don't have the knowledge, or because jobs are evolving continuously, you need to keep up just even to kind of stay with the basics? Or do you think there's still lots of jobs out there which you can still do week in, week out with the same skills?
I think there's still plenty of roles out there that you can get away with it. I think in our world, in technology, I think if you're not subscribed to things like Flipboard or in our world Cognition X, and if you're not reading industry news and you're not keeping abreast, because technology moves that quickly, if you're not keeping abreast of it, you're just going to get left behind. And when you have a client or a prospective client that are now doing something that you don't understand, if you've not caught up with what's happened, you're not going to understand. And therefore, they're not going to want to work with you if you don't understand, their business need and their objectives and what they're trying to do. So in our world, from my perspective, in the technology world, certainly I don't want to say disruptive technology, but forward envelope of innovation. You need to keep abreast of that, what's going on, and what's changing and what's evolving. But yeah, certainly in lower skilled industries and whatnot, you can, I don't want to say coast, but you don't necessarily have to have that growth mindset to get by and still do okay. I think it would help. I think it's universal, and I think it would work kind of everywhere.
And I think at managerial level as well, it comes in. So there were some statistics around sort of learning, and actually the statistics they gathered was that successful managers were doing between 5 and 10 hours learning in their own time, and it didn't have to be necessarily learning about the specific job they were doing today, but just learning around the whole topic. And I think that's the other side of things. It's not like the breadth of knowledge is quite wide now, that you need you need to be a salesman, a technician, and a customer services person in whatever job you do. Not you don't have 3 people doing those things. And it is that breadth that really sort of comes to play. Do you think are organizations now finding it difficult to find these people, or are sort of recruitees being more picky about organizations that are going to help develop them?
It's a good question, and I think on the employee or candidate side, I think you can certainly stand out very easily, and I think from a retention perspective, businesses will be looking to cling on to those kinds, because those people are going to be their future leaders and their future top performers and stars of the future, and that's it's a very obvious thing to identify and say we need to keep hold of this person. And if you studied all the top performers across however many say 1,000 of the best, most profitable businesses in the world, they'll all have the same traits, and they will all have extracurricular learning. They will all have a view. I kind of sum up in a sentence: if you're not where you want to be, then you need to do something and change your environment. And they will all have that attitude, those kind of people. See, I think from a retention perspective, companies, hiring companies will cling on to those people, as much as possible because they're their future top performers. And I think, on the employee, candidate side, it certainly makes you stand out. And I think I knew someone a little while ago who had this facade of a growth mindset, and that's great. But it was always I'll leave these couple of books on my desk so that my boss thinks that I've read them, and actually never really did too much. And it was always it's like I never really saw the point behind it. Why don't you just read them and learn something, or change your situation? So you'll always get those kinds of people as well that try to kind of put it on and take it.
But I was going to say, at least someone like that actually recognises that there is value from it. Maybe they don't take the next step and actually doing it. But I think the first step is to recognise there's value in it.
I think it's almost worse, Ed, to be honest. I think it's almost worse. If you can recognise it and do nothing about it, then you're an idiot, quite frankly. But if you're completely oblivious, then that's almost ignorance is bliss, as they say. So I think that's almost the better option, personally, in my opinion, of the opinion that I would have of that person. You can recognise something and then not act on it. And that's a hypothetical example of it.
No names mentioned, obviously, but the whole basis is that the first step of any issue is to recognise you've got a problem, or recognise there's an opportunity, or recognise that if you do that, if you're here and if you want to get to the next level in whatever, then you've got to do certain steps. But again, if you are in that zone of just coasting, then how do you make people aware that actually they can do more with their life? They can give more to give themselves more satisfaction, give more. Not just with money, but how can they actually give more to the world with the time they've got available? So, guys, how do you get them to recognise that there is more they can be doing with their allotted time?
Yeah. And coming back to sorry, Rob, I was going to say, coming back to companies, one of the things you said earlier, Ed, around lifestyle and sleep is one of the biggest next performance enhancing frontiers, and I've got a bed sensor that tracks my sleep, and I'm doing all sorts of biohacking around that. But exercise, hydration, sleep, balance as well. How much time do you? Because there's no point being ultra successful if you've got no one around you to spend it with, and no friends and no family or loved ones or whatever. I think that's really important, and companies are now recognizing that side of holistic success. And we do Wellness Wednesdays, so everyone gets a 2-hour lunch break to go to the gym or go and do yoga or go to the park or get some sunshine or whatever. And businesses are now doing a lot around that, health, wellness, well-being, mental health awareness, etc., all that kind of stuff, which is, I think, one of the biggest adoptions of companies with a growth mindset in the last 5 to 10 years.
Wow, I think that'd be great to have an international table of people who are offering those, because it goes beyond being a nice place to work or a good employer. It's actually kind of we formally recognise that success at work requires success in life, or a good strong personal life or personal mindset. And here's the steps we're doing to encourage it. And I guess very much part of our plans for the next phase is to wrap those things into the around all that sort of technology learning, journey, but the whole lifestyle piece, to make sure people are being fed the right things to do. And I don't mean fed physically, but being actually getting told, reinforced, because quite often what you have to be doing, but actually helps to be told the obvious sometimes and reminded of it. Other times it's new techniques or new small things you can be adding to take yourself from one level to 1% up, and whether it's diet or whether it's sleep or whatever. So we're very much going to be wrapping that around our next phase of our approach.
And I guess I'm conscious of time, so I've got really sort of two of the topics really that I wanted to sort of cover, and one goes back a little bit to the whole retention of employees question, and actually the lifestyle side fits into this pretty well, I think, which is what role does HR have to play? How does that have to change and evolve to actually support these new organizations, because it feels like, certainly from an RPA perspective, HR has been somewhat behind the curve. They've not really been proactive in trying to sort of build up these skills, and that's just from one small technology. When you're talking about the growth mindset, which is a whole different way of working, it feels like they've got a mountain to climb. Where are they, and what more can they do?
Well, you've heard me say
I think
for HR, to me, it should be the most exciting time in any HR professional's career, because for all the joys of all these amazing technologies, it needs people to deliver them, and they need a motivated, empowered, energized, strong workforce that's going to stay with your organization. And the more we get to zero unemployment, or certainly zero unemployment in these high skill areas, the more that people become the critical risk, for an organization. If they can all walk out the door tomorrow to one of your rivals, or there's just not enough of them in the full time, and if not enough of people full stop, then your business is at risk, because there's no one that can actually turn up and do the basics, let alone the more high-end things. So from HR point of view, these are amazing challenges to start addressing, because they are super business critical, partly to survive and partly to kind of thrive for the organization. So I think any HR person should be super excited and energized by the problems to solve and the opportunities to solve them.
Yeah, I think you have a number of good HR kind of directors. You have a number of good, good HR directors that will take initiative on that, and kind of they'll push that up the tree, as it were, or they'll push that up the hill and up the hierarchy. I think the onus of that culture setting is from C-level and from owner level. I think if you're going to rely upon HR to fix that for you, I think you'd be disappointed. Ultimately, I think it's the responsibility of the leadership team to set that culture from the top down, and then have HR kind of execute on that plan. But yeah, I think it's certainly an exciting time to be in HR when it comes to that kind of stuff, if you've got the right buy-in. Because these things cost money as well. If you've got the right buy-in, the right budget, the right culture in that company, you can do a lot of really interesting stuff. And it's not about putting slides in your office and try and replicate what Google do, or any stuff like that. It's about profit and productivity and wellness, and is your workforce going to be the same guys doing the same thing in 10 years time, or are you going to be able to have some of the same people doing very different things, because you're going to upskill them and support them? And there was talk even recently, hot topic on my mind, of paternity leave being doubled or tripled or something like that. And my instant response was, how a small business is going to keep on that if you have the majority of your workforce is male and they're off for 3 months at a time. Like, that's a tough one. But those kinds of forward-thinking initiatives, and following in some other countries' footsteps, is a good way to go. Like, the Nordics are pretty good at that. Paternity split kind of stuff. You have 12 months, or whatever, split between both parents if you want. I think the whole thing comes down to productivity for me. You're going to get a much happier, more motivated, and more productive workforce that are going to stay with you longer. And if they stay with you longer, they're going to be doing a better job, because counterintuitive for me, hiring and pulling people in, onboarding, skilling up, etc. That takes time, effort, money, and engaging with headhunters. So retention is critical. So, and actually, I wrote a presentation this week for one of our clients on this, by the way, as well. We sent it off to one of our clients, and we kind of spoke through the 21 hires in the last 2 and a bit years that we've done for them. And we were looking at us going, right, how many of them are still there? Because that's really important. And how many of those hires, and it was about 40% of those hires, have transferred into not just good hires, but really key hires that have also now been promoted at least once or twice. So we looked at those figures and from an agency perspective, that's what we're looking to achieve as well. So that's not just us, that's also down to that business and how they manage, incentivize, etc., etc. So that's kind of something that people are now looking very heavily at.
Yeah, it's almost the opposite of sort of, I think, when we were sort of going through education, it was like you are almost expected to have several small jobs and move around a lot. Whereas actually from an employer perspective, if you can, you want to retain people, you know. So it's like, and that was my generation. Again, I don't know if the same for millennials, but I guess it probably was, but even more so.
Yeah, I think one thing that's really prevalent. I was going to say, I think one thing that's really prevalent these days is outsourcing entire functions. This is technology leveraged and enabled. You know, if you can't do digital marketing, outsource it. If you can't do PPC or SEO, outsource it. You know, if you've got a product and you're not good at sales, you can bring in a sales agency to sell it for you. You know, I think that's a big kind of technology leverage in the last, you know, decade or so as well, which is that idea of just going, I'm not very good at that, get someone else to do it for me.
Ed, you were going to say something as well?
I was just going to say that, you know, I wrote a couple of months ago, the irony of we're back to this kind of jobs for life, you know, business model whereby, you know, everyone was afraid of the technology, but it damaged their employment capabilities or employment prospects. In reality, you know, employers are you know, desperate to hang on to people in a way that they haven't been for years, and they're willing to invest in that and recognize the cost if they don't, recognize the value of, you know, this relatively small cost of investing in keeping people. So yeah, the irony of jobs for life in an age of robots.
I guess I want to bring this all to a close and let people sort of go to the sunshine that's out there. But you know, sort of, is there anything, you know, we've talked quite a broad set of topics. I know you prepared a few sort of notes and things before we started today. Is there anything that we haven't really covered that you think is really important to people around the growth mindset? Will?
Nothing that springs to mind straight away. I think we defined it. You know, we've said it's not just for work, it's not just for learning, it's holistic across health, you know, wellness, well-being, etc., productivity, life, you know, balance. We've spoken about businesses hiring and, you know, people looking for new opportunities and how they can do that. I think, you know, maybe some of my go-to resources, if you will, for learning, you know, maybe something to touch on, but you know, I think the easiest things out there are the things that come for free, and there's a lot of crap content on YouTube. If you want to watch a cat going, you know, jet skiing or something, you can do that, but there's also a lot of really good free content out there, and inevitably it's people, you know, creating a lead funnel for whatever service or product they're selling, but there's still, you know, millions of hours of really good, useful free content. If you follow and subscribe to the right people, you can get that pushed out to you. And I watch YouTube videos and just listen to them in my car because a lot of them are just talking. But, you know, YouTube, podcasts, Audible, they're my kind of current go-tos and have been for the last 18 months or so. So yeah, a lot easier than going down to a library or whatever. Never catch me in one of them.
Do they still exist?
Yeah, I mean, in the last, you know, couple of years have been, yeah, Audible definitely. I'm a huge fan of Audible, but also the podcasts. I mean, it's kind of hard to find the right content on podcasts, and so, you know, but in terms of if you find the right person, there's guys like, you know, Tim Ferriss who kind of, you know, he's got his message to give, and it's quite powerful. You know, do you need to hear it over and over and over again? Maybe not, but essentially these guys are all, you know, so the biggest thing I find with the podcast is you just get stuck in a rut, listen to the same people over again, as opposed to kind of like doing a monthly refresh or every 6 months a refresh of everyone and starting from scratch for the new stuff. There's just so much out there. But I think it's also kind of the starting point. You know, what do you want to learn? You know, what do you feel you need to improve at, or what to be more aware of? And it could be anything, because, you know, learning's great for your brain, full stop, whether it's, you know, a new chess move or learning a new chess program or you know, some technology. It all kind of knits together and expands your brain. So it doesn't have to be just for work purposes. But what I would love, you know, what I love most is going to a restaurant that someone else has chosen and then someone else orders for me, because, you know, it forces you to go to somewhere new. It forces you to eat something you hadn't planned to eat. And I'd love to have the same for podcasts or YouTube videos. Someone just saying, like, you know, randomly just 10 things to go and look at or listen to. So you're kind of forced to kind of not just be stuck in your kind of your funnel or your kind of same old. I'll have steak at my favorite restaurant because I always have steak at my favorite restaurant kind of model. But so yeah, constantly looking for new sort of things, and an open mind is kind of the starting point. I know it's very hard to do, so that's my thing.
And I was reading also, I think it was Amazon this was referring to, but one of the divisions of Amazon literally have a book of the week that, and it's not a book of the week assigned to them. Each individual reads their own book of the week and then tells the others about, about what it is as part of their continuous learning. And it's just part of their day-to-day sort of working life. It's not even out of work. It's part of what they do, is share that knowledge and these sources of information. And I think that's another way of looking at how do you tap into the other meals that you don't know about.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to draw it all to a close. I have to say thank you very much both for all of your time today. I've got a few takeaways. I think Will did a fantastic job of summing up a lot of the content. But for me, I think I came into this sort of exercise almost as an academic exercise, that it was all about the content, it was about the learning, it was about sort of getting into that mind frame of learning. What I didn't think about, and has really sort of come through today, is that holistic view, is it's about the sleep, it's about the sort of eating properly, it's about the exercise, it's about having that balance in your life that actually makes that learning the most effective. And I think for me, that's my one big takeaway from our discussion today, of which there are many others as well. I'm sure others would agree. So thanks very much for your time. Thank you, Will. Best of luck on the baby, which is due anytime soon. And thank you, Ed. Enjoy the sunshine.
Excellent, right? Thanks, Rob.
Appreciate it.
Cheers, Rob.
Thanks.
Cheers, Will.